I'm Scarlett Patterson, and I talk to animals for a living. Yeah, I know how that sounds. But when your golden retriever starts having nightmares about industrial machinery he's never seen, you pay attention. Max had been whimpering in his sleep for 3 nights straight, his paws paddling frantically against invisible threats. When I finally connected with him mentally, the images nearly knocked me over. Dark tunnels, grinding metal, the earth itself screaming in pain. "What the hell, Max?" I whispered, stroking his trembling fur. "There's nothing like that around here." Our quiet Salt Lake City neighborhood was all tree-lined streets and garden sprinklers. The closest thing to heavy machinery was Mrs. Chen's ancient lawnmower next door. Meanwhile, across town, Amber Moore was having her own crisis. The budget meeting at Copper Canyon Mining had gone about as well as expected, which is to say, terrible. "We need to cut 30%, her supervisor had announced like he was discussing the weather. "Find a way to make it work more, or we'll find someone who can." Amber stared at the geological surveys scattered across her desk. Equipment failures were becoming more frequent, and the deeper they dug, the more unstable everything became. Something was wrong underground, but she couldn't put her finger on what. Spring in Utah meant community events, and the Mill Creek neighborhood picnic was legendary. I'd never missed one in 5 years of living here. Plus, I'd finally perfected Grandma's potato salad recipe, the one with the secret ingredient nobody could ever guess. I loaded Max into my beat-up Honda and headed to the park, mentally preparing for the usual questions about my job. People either thought I was completely nuts or wanted me to solve every pet behavioral problem in the county. Amber wasn't much for social events, but her neighbor had practically dragged her out of her apartment. "You work too much," Sandra had insisted. "Live a little, meet people, eat potato salad." So there Amber stood, holding her grandmother's famous potato salad and wondering why she'd let herself get talked into this. The recipe had been passed down 3 generations, and she'd never shared it with anyone. The moment of truth came at the potluck table. I set down my dish right next to an identical one, complete with the same glass bowl and everything. We both froze, staring. "Well, this is awkward," said the blonde woman beside me. "Either we have the same grandmother," I replied, "or great minds think alike." She laughed, and damn if it wasn't the most genuine sound I'd heard all week. "I'm Amber, and you're either psychic or we need to compare recipes. Scarlett. And I vote for recipe comparison." I studied her face, noting the laugh lines around her blue eyes and the way her hair caught the afternoon sunlight. "Though I have to warn you, mine involves a secret ingredient." "So does mine." She grinned. "This could get interesting." Max chose that moment to bound over, tail wagging like he'd found his new best friend. He sat directly between us, looking back and forth like he was following a tennis match. "Smart dog," Amber said, crouching to pet him. "What's his story?" "Max thinks he's my business partner," I said. "We're in the animal communication field." Amber's eyebrows shot up. "No kidding? I work with a different kind of underground creature, mining engineer." That's when Max started whining again. That same distressed sound from his nightmares. He was staring directly at Amber, and suddenly, the pieces clicked into place. "This might sound crazy," I said slowly, "but I think my dog's been dreaming about your work." Amber stared at me like I'd just claimed the moon was made of cheese. "Your dog dreams about mining?" I know how it sounds. I watched Max pace nervously around us, his ears flattened against his head. "But he's been having nightmares for days. Underground tunnels, machinery sounds, something that feels wrong deep in the earth." "Damn." Amber sat back on her heels, studying Max with new interest. "We've been having equipment failures all week, stuff that shouldn't be breaking down. And the deeper we go, the worse it gets," I finished. She nodded slowly. "The geological surveys don't match what we're finding down there. It's like someone's been hiding something for decades." Max whined again, pressing against my legs. Through our connection, I caught fragments of his distress. Fear, darkness, something alive but wrong, moving through spaces it shouldn't occupy. "There's more," I said. He's picking up on other animals too. Something's got the local wildlife spooked. What kind of wildlife? Bats, mostly. They're abandoning roosts they've used for years. Amber went very still. We have a bat colony in the older sections of the mine, protected species so we can't disturb them. But lately, she trailed off, looking thoughtful. They've been acting strange? Gone completely silent. Used to hear them every evening when I'd check the night shift reports. Now, nothing. The picnic swirled around us, families laughing and kids chasing each other across the grass, but I felt like Amber and I had fallen into our own private bubble of conspiracy. This is going to sound weird, she said, but would you consider coming out to the site, if your dog can really sense what's happening underground? Max isn't the only one with the gift. I met her eyes directly. I can communicate with the bats too, all animals actually. Seriously? Seriously, it's my job. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through what looked like geological reports. These readings don't make sense. Vibrations coming from sections that should be solid rock. Temperature fluctuations in areas we haven't touched. When can we go? Tomorrow morning? I can get you security clearance as a consultant. I nodded, feeling that familiar tingle of excitement that came with a new mystery. But there was something else too. Something about the way Amber looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I have to ask, she said, standing up and brushing grass from her jeans. Do people usually believe you about the animal thing? Not usually. Most think I'm either crazy or running some kind of scam. But you're not. It wasn't a question, which surprised me. No, I'm not. Good. She smiled, and I noticed the way it transformed her whole face. Because I'm going to need all the help I can get. The afternoon sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the park. Other picnic-goers were packing up their blankets and leftover food, but neither of us moved to leave. So, about those potato salads, I said. Bacon bits, she said, at the same time I said, bacon bits. We both started laughing, and Max's tail finally stopped its anxious twitching. Great minds, Amber said. Or great-grandmothers. She stepped closer, ostensibly to scratch behind Max's ears, but close enough that I caught a hint of her perfume. Something clean and earthy, like rain on desert stone. See you tomorrow, Scarlett. The way she said my name made something flutter in my chest. Tomorrow. She was already walking away when she turned back. Bring Max. Something tells me we're going to need him. The Copper Canyon mining site looked like a wound in the earth, all exposed rock and industrial machinery against the Utah mountains. Amber met me at the security gate wearing a hard hat and safety vest that somehow made her look more attractive, not less. Ready for this? She asked, handing me my own gear. Max whined softly beside me, his anxiety spiking as we approached the mine entrance. Through our connection, I felt his distress like a physical weight. He's terrified, I told Amber. Whatever's down there, it's got him spooked worse than anything I've ever felt. The bat colony is about half a mile in, she said, leading us toward the main shaft. We'll take the service elevator down to level 3. The descent felt endless. Max pressed against my legs, trembling, while Amber watched the depth gauge with professional calm. When we finally stopped, the silence was absolute and wrong. Where are the bats? I whispered. That's what I want to know. We followed a narrow tunnel carved from living rock, our headlamps cutting through darkness that seemed to swallow light. The air tasted metallic and stale, but underneath that was something else, something organic and fearful. Then I heard them. Not sounds exactly, but the psychic equivalent of screaming. They're still here, I said, stopping so abruptly that Amber bumped into me. But they're hiding. Deeper than they should be able to go. Hiding from what? I closed my eyes and reached out with my mind, following the thread of bat consciousness into spaces that shouldn't exist. What I found made my blood run cold. There are tunnels down here that aren't on any map, I said, old ones. The bats found them when they were fleeing from something else. Amber pulled out her tablet, scrolling through geological surveys. According to this, we're standing on solid bedrock. No cavities, no natural formations. Then someone dug them a long time ago. We kept walking, following maintenance cables strung along the tunnel walls. The silence felt oppressive, broken only by the distant hum of ventilation systems and our own breathing. There, Amber said, pointing to a section where the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. The bat roost was abandoned, but I could sense them nearby, huddled together in spaces that shouldn't exist. Their fear was overwhelming, a constant pulse of terror that made my head ache. "They're trying to tell me something," I said, pressing my palms against my temples. "About vibrations. Sounds that come from below, not above." "Below?" Amber checked her readings again. "That's impossible. We're already at the deepest level of active mining." Max suddenly bolted, disappearing into a side passage I hadn't noticed before. His barking echoed from somewhere impossibly far away. "Max!" I called, chasing after him. "Scarlet, wait!" Amber's voice carried the authority of someone used to mine safety protocols, but I was already following my dog into darkness. The passage was narrow, clearly not part of the official mine system. Our lights revealed rough-hewn walls and support beams that looked decades old, ancient even. We found Max at the end of the tunnel, barking at what appeared to be a solid wall. But when I pressed my hand against the rock, I felt air movement. "There's space behind here," I said. Amber ran her hands along the wall, finding a section that gave slightly under pressure. "This isn't natural rock. It's been sealed." The implications hit us both at the same time. Someone had deliberately hidden whatever lay beyond that wall, and the animals knew it was there. "We need to come back with proper equipment," Amber said, but her voice carried the same excitement I felt. Walking back through those tunnels, our shoulders occasionally brushing in the narrow spaces, I became acutely aware of how isolated we were, how the darkness seemed to press us closer together. "Coffee?" Amber asked when we finally reached the surface. "I know a place that stays open late. We could go over the geological data, figure out our next move." "I thought you'd never ask." Her apartment was exactly what I'd expected from a mining engineer. Clean lines, practical furniture, and geological maps covering one entire wall. But there were unexpected touches, too. Soft throws on the couch, plants thriving in the windows, books of poetry mixed in with technical manuals. "You read Adrienne Rich?" I asked, noting a worn collection on her coffee table. "Guilty pleasure." She handed me a mug of coffee, our fingers touching briefly in the exchange. Most people don't expect mining engineers to have feelings. Most people are wrong about a lot of things. We spread the geological surveys across her dining table, but I found myself watching the way she moved. The precise gestures as she pointed out inconsistencies in the data. When she leaned closer to show me something, her hair brushed against my cheek. "Scarlet." "Yeah?" "Thank you. For today. For believing there was something worth investigating. Thank you for trusting me, and Max." The space between us seemed to shrink, charged with possibility. When she reached up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear, I didn't pull away. "This is probably a terrible idea," she whispered. Probably. But when she kissed me, soft and questioning, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. 3 days of underground investigation had revealed a pattern that made my skin crawl. Every animal I'd communicated with pointed to the same location, a section of the mine that officially didn't exist. "The rabbits are fleeing the area above ground," I told Amber as we reviewed my notes over breakfast. "Even the coyotes won't hunt there anymore." She spread historical mining documents across the kitchen table, papers she'd somehow managed to access from the company archives. "Look at this. There's a gap in the records, from 1987 to 1989. 2 full years with no documentation of what they were excavating. That's when the animals say the disturbances started." Max lay at my feet, calmer now that we were away from the mine, but still occasionally whimpering in his sleep. Through our connection, I caught glimpses of his dreams. Darkness that moved with purpose. Spaces that breathed. "I found something else," Amber said, pulling out a folder marked with red warning labels. incident reports that were buried in legal files, 3 workers hospitalized with psychological distress. All of them claimed they heard voices from the sealed sections. What kind of voices? Screaming, pleading, like people were trapped down there. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. Amber, what if they were? She met my eyes across the table, and I saw my own fear reflected there. I've been thinking the same thing. What if the company covered up more than just environmental damage? We drove back to the mine in tense silence, both of us carrying equipment Amber had borrowed without official permission. Ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, tools that could see through rock and earth. The sealed wall looked innocuous in daylight, just another section of tunnel reinforcement. But when Amber powered up the radar, the readings were impossible to ignore. There's a chamber back there, she said, staring at the display. Big enough for multiple people. And Scarlet, the thermal signature suggests... What? Recent heat activity. Like someone's been down there. My hands shook as I pressed them against the wall, reaching out with my consciousness toward whatever lay beyond. What I found nearly dropped me to my knees. Human voices, faint and desperate, calling out in languages I couldn't understand, but underneath that, something else, something that had never been human at all. We have to get through this wall, I said. I can't authorize that kind of excavation. If corporate finds out. People are dying down there, Amber, right now. She stared at the wall, then at her career, weighing options that could destroy everything she'd worked for. Finally, she nodded. There's construction equipment in Storage Bay C. If we work fast. The drilling took 3 hours. Every bite of the excavator felt like an eternity, while I monitored the psychic distress signals from beyond the barrier. The voices were getting weaker. When the wall finally gave way, the smell that emerged was indescribable. Decay and terror and something chemically sharp that burned our throats. Amber's flashlight revealed a chamber that belonged in nightmares. Modern clothes scattered across ancient stone, corporate identification badges mixed with bones that looked centuries old. But it was the documents we found that changed everything. Records of illegal human experimentation conducted under the cover of mining operations. Test subjects who'd been declared missing, their families told they'd simply vanished. Dear God, Amber whispered, photographing everything with shaking hands. They've been doing this for decades. The drive back to her apartment passed in shocked silence. We'd stumbled onto something bigger than environmental cover-ups or safety violations. This was systematic murder, hidden beneath layers of corporate bureaucracy and sealed rock. What do we do now? I asked as we sat on her couch, both of us still processing what we'd seen. We have to report it. FBI, probably. This goes way beyond mining violations. But first, we held each other. The horror of the day had stripped away pretense and caution, leaving us raw and desperate for human connection. When Amber kissed me this time, it wasn't tentative or questioning. It was fierce and necessary, an affirmation of life in the face of so much death. Stay tonight, she whispered against my lips. Are you sure? After what we saw down there, I'm sure about very few things. But I'm sure about this. Her bedroom was simple and clean, moonlight streaming through gauze curtains. When she pulled her shirt over her head, I saw vulnerability in her eyes that matched my own. We moved together slowly, carefully, as if afraid that sudden movements might shatter whatever fragile thing was growing between us. Her skin was warm under my hands, and when she whispered my name, it sounded like prayer. Later, as we lay tangled together in the aftermath, I traced patterns on her bare shoulder and tried to make sense of the day. Everything's going to change now, I said. I know. She tightened her arms around me. Whatever happens with the investigation, with my job, with all of it. Scared? Terrified. But not of losing my career. What then? She turned to look at me, her blue eyes serious in the dim light. Of losing this. Of losing you. I kissed her forehead, tasting salt and possibility. You won't. Outside, Max barked once, at something only he could sense, then settled back into peaceful sleep. For the first time in days, his dreams were quiet. The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning, cream-colored paper with elegant gold lettering that made my stomach drop. Rachel's wedding, my best friend from college, finally tying the knot after years of dating disasters and career obsessions. I should have been happy for her. Would have been, if not for the name printed beneath hers. Emma Chen. My Emma. Well, not mine anymore, but the woman who'd owned my heart for 3 years before vanishing from my life without explanation. Bad news? Amber asked, noticing my expression as she emerged from the shower, hair damp and skin flushed from the heat. Wedding invitation? Old friend? I didn't mention Emma's name. Couldn't bring myself to explain the complicated history to someone I was just beginning to care about. How do you tell your new lover that you never really got over your college girlfriend? You okay? Amber sat beside me on the bed, concern creasing her forehead. Yeah, just surprised, that's all. But I wasn't okay. Emma's name on that invitation brought back memories I'd spent years trying to bury. Late nights in the library, stolen kisses in empty classrooms, the way she'd whispered my name like it was sacred. The wedding was in 3 weeks. 3 weeks to prepare myself for seeing the woman who'd broken my heart by choosing a conventional life over what we had together. I might need to take a long weekend, I told Amber. The wedding's in Colorado. Of course. Take whatever time you need. She was being supportive, understanding, everything a good partner should be, which made the guilt twisting in my chest even worse. The FBI investigation into the mine had been swift and thorough. Amber had been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome, which meant we'd been spending more time together than ever, getting to know each other's habits, the way she hummed while making breakfast, how she always read 3 pages of poetry before bed. I was falling for her, hard, but Emma's ghost still haunted the spaces between us. The wedding venue was everything Emma had dreamed of when we were young and stupid and planning our own impossible future together. Mountain views, wildflowers, string quartet playing classical pieces that made my chest ache with recognition. I found a seat in the back, hoping to remain invisible, but Rachel spotted me immediately. Scarlett. She rushed over in a cloud of silk and tulle, pulling me into a hug that smelled like jasmine and nerves. I can't believe you made it. Emma will be so excited to see you. My smile felt like broken glass. Congratulations, Rach. You look beautiful. She's been asking about you all morning, wondering if you'd actually show up. Of course she had. Emma always did like to poke at old wounds. The ceremony was torture, watching Emma walk down the aisle in a simple white dress that emphasized her dark hair and delicate features, seeing her exchange vows with a man who clearly adored her, knowing that she'd chosen this safe, acceptable life over the messy, complicated love we'd shared. When they kissed, I felt something inside me finally break clean through. The reception was worse. Open bar, dancing, Emma glowing with happiness, while I sat at a table full of strangers and pretended my heart wasn't bleeding all over the tablecloth. Scarlett. I looked up to find Emma standing beside my chair, still in her wedding dress, but with her hair loose around her shoulders the way I'd always loved it. Can we talk? Privately? The hotel garden was quiet, lit by string lights and the soft glow of citronella candles. Emma led me to a secluded bench near the fountain, her dress rustling against the stone. You came, she said. Rachel's my friend. That's not why you're here. No, it wasn't. I was here because some masochistic part of me needed to see her choose someone else, needed the final confirmation that what we'd had was just a college experiment to her. You look good, Emma said, happy. So do you. Do I? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I keep thinking about senior year, about us. Emma, don't. I made a mistake, Scarlett. Walking away from you, from what we had, it was the biggest mistake of my life. The words I'd waited 8 years to hear, arriving on her wedding night like some cosmic joke. You're married now, I said carefully. To a good man who deserves better than someone who spent the entire ceremony thinking about their college girlfriend. Emma, stop. I can't. Do you know how many times I've started to call you over the years? How many letters I've written and never sent? Why didn't you? Because I was scared. Of what my parents would think. Of what it would mean for my career. Of being different in a world that punishes women like us. She reached for my hand, and I let her take it, feeling the familiar electric shock of her touch. But I'm tired of being scared, Scarlett. Tired of pretending to be someone I'm not. It's too late. Is it? Is there someone else? Yes, I thought. There's Amber, who makes me laugh and challenges me and looks at me like I'm something precious. But the word wouldn't come. There is, Emma said, reading my silence correctly. You love her. I think I do. Then I'm too late. Her voice was steady, but I saw tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. I had my chance and I blew it. Emma. No, it's okay. I made my choice 8 years ago. I just needed you to know that it was the wrong one. She stood up, smoothing her dress, every inch the composed bride again. Be happy, Scarlett. Be braver than I was. She walked back toward the reception, leaving me alone with the fountain and the weight of what might have been. My phone buzzed. A text from Amber. Hope the wedding is beautiful. Miss you. I stared at those words for a long time, then typed back, miss you too. Coming home tomorrow. Home. When had Salt Lake City become home? When had Amber's apartment become the place I most wanted to be? I deleted Emma's number from my phone, right there in the garden, surrounded by the ghost of our old love and the promise of something new. I flew back from Colorado carrying Emma's words like shrapnel in my chest. The plane descended over Salt Lake City's familiar mountains, but nothing felt the same. How do you tell someone you're falling for that your ex-girlfriend just confessed she'd made the biggest mistake of her life by letting you go? Amber picked me up at the airport, her smile bright and genuine, completely unaware that my world had shifted on its axis in a hotel garden 3 states away. How was it? She asked, kissing my cheek as we walked to her car. Beautiful. Rachel looked radiant. True, but incomplete. I couldn't bring myself to mention the bride's name, or the conversation that had left me questioning everything I thought I knew about closure. The mine investigation had progressed in my absence. FBI agents swarmed the site, excavating more chambers, uncovering decades of corporate conspiracy and human trafficking. Amber's testimony had been crucial, but the stress was taking its toll. They cleared me of any wrongdoing, she said as we drove through downtown traffic. But my reputation in the industry is shot. Who's going to hire the engineer who blew the whistle on her own company? Someone with integrity. Integrity doesn't pay the bills. But her career troubles felt distant compared to the Emma-shaped hole burning through my consciousness. Every time Amber touched me, I wondered if I was being fair to her. How could I build something real while carrying torch flames for someone else? The breaking point came 3 days later. We were having coffee at our usual spot when Amber's phone rang. Unknown number, she said, declining the call. It rang again immediately. Maybe you should answer it, I suggested. Amber Moore speaking. Her expression shifted from annoyed to confused to something approaching fear. I'm sorry, who is this? She handed me the phone. Someone asking for you, says she's calling from Colorado. My blood turned to ice water. Hello? Scarlett, it's Emma. Please don't hang up. How did you get this number? Rachel gave it to me, along with some interesting information about your girlfriend. I walked outside, leaving Amber staring after me with growing suspicion. Emma, you can't call me. You're married. I left him. Her voice was steady, matter of fact. Drove straight to the airport after the reception. Couldn't go through with the honeymoon knowing I was living a lie. You what? I filed for annulment yesterday. Turns out you can do that when you haven't consummated the marriage because you spent your wedding, like crying over someone else. The parking lot seemed to tilt around me. Emma, you can't just blow up your life because of one conversation. I'm not. I'm finally living it. For the first time in 8 years, I'm making a choice based on what I want, not what's expected of me. What do you want? You. I want you, Scarlett. I want us to try again. Through the coffee shop window, I could see Amber sitting at our table, her face a mask of carefully controlled concern. She deserved better than this. Better than someone who couldn't even be honest about why she was taking mysterious phone calls. I'm with someone, I said. I know. Rachel told me about the mining engineer. But are you happy? Really, truly happy? Or are you settling for good enough because you think that's all you deserve? The question hit like a physical blow. Was I settling? Or was I finally learning what real love looked like, built on trust and shared experience rather than youthful passion and stolen moments? I can't do this over the phone, I said. Then see me. I'm flying to Salt Lake tomorrow. Just to talk. Emma. One conversation, Scarlett. Face to face. Then I'll respect whatever decision you make. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, feeling like I was standing at the edge of a cliff with no good options for landing. Who was that? Amber asked when I returned to the table. I could have lied, should have lied. But the weight of deception was already crushing me. Someone from my past. The bride? Damn. Amber was too smart for half-truths. Yes. And she's coming here? Tomorrow. Amber's coffee cup hit the table harder than necessary. Let me guess. College girlfriend who broke your heart and now wants you back? It's not that simple. It never is. She stood up, gathering her jacket with sharp, angry movements. You know what, Scarlett? I thought we had something real. Something worth fighting for. But if you need to explore old flames to figure out what you want, maybe I was wrong. Amber, wait. No. I'm done waiting. Done being understanding while you figure out whether I'm worth choosing. Her blue eyes were bright with unshed tears. Call me when you decide if you want to be here or living in the past. She walked out, leaving me alone with cold coffee and the wreckage of my own making. That night, Max whined constantly, picking up on my emotional turmoil. Through our connection, I felt his confusion and distress, a four-legged mirror of my own fractured state. Emma's flight would arrive at 2 p.m. Amber hadn't answered any of my calls. I had less than 18 hours to figure out whether I was brave enough to fight for the future I was building, or if I'd always be that 22-year-old girl who never got over her first real heartbreak. The mine investigation continued without us, FBI agents uncovering more horrors while I sat in my empty apartment and wondered how I'd managed to hurt the one person who trusted me completely. Emma looked exactly the same stepping off that plane. Dark hair, careful smile, designer clothes that screamed success and respectability. Everything I'd once thought I wanted. You came, she said, like she doubted I would. I said I would. We drove to a neutral coffee shop, neither of us ready for the intimacy of my apartment. The conversation I'd dreaded for 8 years stretched between us like a minefield. Tell me about her, Emma said. Amber? She's brilliant, brave. She risked everything to expose corruption at her company. You love her. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes, I do. Then why are you here with me? Because you were my first love. Because I spent years wondering what if. Because some stupid part of me needed to know if we could work now that we're older, braver, supposedly wiser. But sitting across from Emma in that generic coffee chain, watching her fidget with her wedding ring that she still wore out of habit, I realized something had shifted. The Emma I'd loved was a memory, a 22-year-old girl who chose safety over truth. This woman was a stranger, wearing a familiar face. I needed closure, I said finally. Is that what this is? Before I could answer, my phone rang, Amber's ringtone. I almost ignored it, but something in the urgency of the sound made me pick up. Scarlett, thank God. Her voice was tight with panic. There's been an accident at the mine. Cave-in on level 4. 3 workers trapped. My blood went cold. Are you okay? I'm fine, but they need me on site. I'm the only one who knows the tunnel layout for that section. And Scarlett, they're asking for you too. For me? The rescue dogs can't get through the debris, but if there are any animals down there that can help locate the workers, I'll be right there. Emma watched me grab my jacket with resignation already settling in her eyes. Go, she said. People need you. Emma, I'm sorry. Don't be. This is who you are, Scarlett. Someone who shows up when people need help. I fell in love with that about you, and I'm not going to stand in the way of it now. The mine site was chaos. Emergency vehicles, worried families, rescue teams suited up and ready to descend into unstable tunnels. I found Amber huddled over geological charts with the incident commander, her hair pulled back and safety vest already strapped on. How bad is it? I asked. Bad. The cave-in blocked the main access route, and the air supply to that section is limited. She looked up at me, and despite everything between us, her expression was pure relief. I'm so glad you're here. Where do you need me? There's a maintenance shaft that might connect to the trapped area, but it's too narrow for rescue workers. If there are rats or other small animals down there, I can try to make contact. Suiting up felt surreal after days of emotional turmoil. Hard hat, breathing apparatus, emergency beacon, the tools of crisis, familiar and grounding. The descent into the mine was like entering hell. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red, and the sound of drilling equipment echoed through passages that groaned with structural instability. The shaft is here, Amber said, pointing to an opening barely wide enough for a person. The trapped workers should be about 200 feet in that direction. I closed my eyes and reached out with my consciousness, searching for any sign of animal life in the darkness below. At first, nothing. Then, faint but distinct, the panicked chittering of rats fleeing through spaces humans couldn't reach. There, I said, following their mental trail. 3 people, alive but running out of air. There's a pocket of space near the old water line. Amber relayed coordinates to the rescue team while I maintained contact with the rats, using their senses to map the debris field and locate the safest excavation point. 2 hours of careful drilling. 2 hours of holding my breath every time the tunnel groaned, every time falling rocks made the trapped workers' air pockets smaller. When they finally broke through, when the first worker emerged gasping and grateful, Amber grabbed my hand. We did it, she whispered. We did. The second worker came up conscious but injured. The third required medical attention but was stable. All 3 alive because of precise coordination between human engineering and animal intelligence. Standing in that chaos of relief and celebration, covered in rock dust and exhaustion, I finally understood what Emma had been trying to tell me in that hotel garden. The choice wasn't between past and present safety and risk. It was between running away from who I was and embracing it fully. Amber, I said as we watched the ambulances drive away. Yeah? I need to tell you about Emma. Not here. Yes, here. Because I need you to know that seeing her again made me realize something important. She turned to face me fully, her blue eyes wary but listening. I love you, I said. Not because you're safe or convenient or good enough. I love you because you're extraordinary. Because you fight for what's right even when it costs you everything. Because when people needed help today, you didn't hesitate. Scarlett. I love you because you make me want to be braver, better, more honest than I've ever been. And if you'll let me, I want to spend whatever time we have figuring out what we can build together. She was quiet for a long moment, studying my face in the harsh glare of emergency lighting. What about Emma? What about her? She's part of my history, not my future. You're sure? Instead of answering, I kissed her. Right there in front of the FBI agents and rescue workers and mining executives. Kissed her like she was the only thing anchoring me to Earth, which in that moment she was. When we broke apart, she was smiling. I love you too, she said. Even when you're an emotional disaster who takes mysterious phone calls from ex-girlfriends. Especially then? Especially then. Later, much later, after the paperwork and debriefings and interviews, we ended up back at her apartment. The adrenaline crash hit us both hard, but underneath the exhaustion was something new. A certainty that felt solid as bedrock. When she pulled me into her bedroom, there was no hesitation, no shadows of doubt or past loves. Just us. Finally honest with each other and ourselves. Her hands on my skin felt like coming home. When she whispered my name against my throat, it sounded like a promise. We moved together with the desperate tenderness of people who'd almost lost something precious, taking our time to rediscover what we'd nearly thrown away. Afterward, wrapped in her arms with Max snoring peacefully at the foot of the bed, I finally felt like I could breathe again. "No more secrets?" Amber asked. "No more secrets." "Good. Because I have something to tell you too." "What?" "I got a job offer today. Environmental consulting firm in Denver. They want someone with inside knowledge of corporate cover-ups." My heart sank. "That's wonderful. You deserve it." I turned it down. "Why?" She propped herself up on one elbow, looking down at me with that crooked smile I'd fallen for. "Because I have a better idea." "What would you say to starting our own consulting firm?" "Your animal communication expertise plus my geological knowledge. We could help prevent disasters like this one." "Partners?" "In every way that matters." Outside, dawn was breaking over the Utah mountains, painting the sky in shades of possibility. The hardest part about cutting ties with the past is making sure it stays cut. Emma called twice more after the mine rescue, but I let both calls go to voicemail. Her messages were polite, understanding, final. She was moving to Portland, starting over, wishing me well. The closure I'd thought I needed had come naturally once I stopped chasing it. "You did the right thing," Amber said, watching me delete the messages without listening to them completely. "I know. Doesn't make it easier." We were sitting in what would soon become our shared office space, a converted warehouse in the Arts District with exposed brick walls and industrial lighting. The lease agreement sat between us on a paint-splattered table, waiting for signatures that would make our partnership official. "Second thoughts?" Amber asked. "About the business? Never. About us?" I reached across the table to take her hand. "Not for a second." The FBI investigation had concluded with indictments against 12 Copper Canyon executives. The mine was closed permanently, the land designated for environmental restoration. Amber's testimony had been crucial, and her reputation in the industry had shifted from whistleblower to hero. "Wild Hearts Environmental Consulting," she read from the business license application. "I still think that name is too romantic for a professional services firm. I think it's perfect." Wild Hearts led us to each other, didn't they? Our first case came through Rachel, of all people. Her guilt over the Emma situation had motivated her to recommend us to a housing developer concerned about unusual animal behavior on a construction site. "Coyotes refusing to den where they should," I told Amber after my initial assessment. "Ground squirrels abandoning established burrows, classic signs of subsurface contamination." "Or undisclosed hazardous waste disposal," Amber added, studying soil samples under her field microscope. "This whole area shows elevated heavy metal concentrations." The developer wasn't thrilled with our findings, but the EPA was. Our report prevented a housing development from being built on poisoned ground, saving dozens of families from potential health disasters. "We're good at this," Amber said, reading the commendation letter from the EPA regional office. "We're good together." 6 months into our business partnership, the romantic relationship had settled into something comfortable and thrilling at the same time. Amber kept a toothbrush at my place. I had half my clothes in her closet. We developed a morning routine that involved Max getting walked, coffee getting made, and whoever woke up first starting breakfast. "There's something I want to show you," Amber said one evening, leading me to her laptop. The screen displayed an email from the International Association of Environmental Geologists. Invitation to present our joint methodologies at their annual conference in Vancouver. "They want both of us?" I asked. "Both of us." Equal billing. Recognition for pioneering interdisciplinary approaches to environmental assessment. I stared at the invitation, feeling something shift inside my chest. For years, I'd been the quirky animal lady people called when conventional methods failed. Now I was half of a legitimate scientific partnership. "I'm proud of us," I said. "Me too." That night, we celebrated at the same restaurant where we'd had our first official date, a quiet Italian place with checkered tablecloths and wine that cost more than we should have spent. But success deserved acknowledgement. Question, Amber said over tiramisu. Answer. When we present in Vancouver, are we going as business partners or partners? Like sharing a hotel room, holding hands at the conference dinner, introducing each other as girlfriends. The question shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. We'd been so focused on building our professional credibility that we'd never discussed how public to make our personal relationship. What do you want? I asked. I want to stop hiding. From colleagues, from my family, from the world. I'm tired of caring what mining engineers think about my personal life. Your family doesn't know about me? They know I'm seeing someone. They don't know the someone is a woman. This was territory we'd skirted around for months. Amber's parents were traditional Chinese immigrants who'd sacrificed everything for their daughter's education and career. The idea of disappointing them clearly terrified her. I don't want to cause problems with your family, I said carefully. You're not causing problems. I am, by being a coward, Amber. No, it's true. I spent years watching you be brave enough to live authentically, and I've been taking the easy way out. She pulled out her phone, scrolling to her parents' contact information. What are you doing? Inviting them to dinner, here in Salt Lake, time they met the woman I'm in love with. Are you sure? Completely terrified and completely sure. The call lasted 20 minutes, mostly conducted in rapid Mandarin with occasional English phrases I could follow. When she hung up, Amber looked both relieved and nauseated. They're coming next weekend. My mother wants to know if you have dietary restrictions. That's a good sign, right? With my mother, it's impossible to tell. The week leading up to the dinner felt like preparing for a performance. We cleaned my apartment obsessively, researched conversation topics, practiced answers to questions we imagined they might ask. What if they hate me? I asked, trying on my third outfit option. They won't hate you. They might be confused, disappointed, worried about grandchildren they're never going to have. But they won't hate you. Reassuring. Scarlett. She turned me away from the mirror, holding my shoulders. I love you. That's not going to change based on their reaction. Promise? Promise. The dinner went better than expected, and worse than hoped. Amber's parents were polite, curious about my work, careful not to make assumptions about our relationship even as it became obvious we were more than roommates. Her father asked intelligent questions about animal communication. Her mother complimented my cooking and suggested improvements. They treated me like family, which made their measured politeness somehow more painful than outright rejection would have been. They need time, Amber said after they left. This isn't what they pictured for me. I know, but they'll come around. They love me too much not to. 3 days later, Amber's mother called. The conversation was brief, conducted entirely in English for my benefit. You make my daughter happy, she said. That matters more than anything else. She makes me happy too. Good. Now, about this conference in Vancouver. You will both be careful? Very careful. And you will send pictures? By the time we boarded the plane to Vancouver, we'd decided to go public completely. Business cards that listed both our names, conference registration as a couple, hotel room with 1 bed instead of 2. Our presentation was standing room only. Environmental scientists, geologists, wildlife biologists, all packed into a conference room to hear about the intersection of animal behavior and geological assessment. Amber handled the technical data while I explained the communication methodologies. We finished each other's sentences, anticipated each other's questions, moved together like we'd been presenting as a team for years instead of months. During the question and answer session, someone asked about our working relationship. We're partners, I said, in every sense of the word. Amber reached for my hand on stage, in front of 200 professionals from around the world. Personal partnership enhances professional collaboration, she added. We understand each other's strengths, Trust each other's expertise. Communicate without ego getting in the way. The applause was genuine and sustained. Afterward, at the conference dinner, we danced to music that was too slow and too romantic for a professional event. But nobody seemed to care. No regrets? I asked. None. You? Just one. What's that? I should have kissed you at that first picnic, instead of waiting for you to make the first move. We had time. We have more time now. Standing on the hotel balcony later, Vancouver's lights spread out below us like scattered diamonds. I realized that somewhere along the way, I'd stopped thinking about the future as something to survive, and started seeing it as something to create. What are you thinking about? Amber asked, joining me at the railing. How much I love our life. Our life? Yeah. Our weird, complicated, professional, personal, completely intertwined life. She kissed my temple, soft and warm in the cool night air. I love our life too. 6 months later, I found myself standing in the same park where Amber and I had first met, but everything was different now. The Mill Creek Community Spring Picnic had become an annual tradition for us, a way to celebrate how far we'd come. Wild Hearts Environmental Consulting had a waiting list of clients. We'd prevented 3 toxic developments, exposed 2 illegal dumping operations, and saved countless animals from habitat destruction. The Vancouver conference had led to speaking engagements across the country. You nervous? Amber asked, adjusting her sundress for the 3rd time. Should I be? You tell me. You're the one who insisted we needed to make an announcement today. I watched Max chase a frisbee across the same grass where he'd first introduced us through his underground nightmares. He was calmer now, sleeping peacefully since the mine investigation ended. Sometimes I caught him dreaming of open fields and rabbit chases instead of dark tunnels. There's Rachel, I said, spotting my college friend near the potluck table. She'd moved to Salt Lake permanently after her divorce was finalized, claiming she needed a fresh start somewhere Emma couldn't find her. And there's my parents, Amber said, waving at the elderly Chinese couple setting up folding chairs near the bandstand. They'd flown in from San Francisco specifically for today, which still amazed me. 6 months ago, Amber had been terrified to tell them about us. Now her mother called me weekly with cooking tips and investment advice. Ladies and gentlemen, the community coordinator announced over the microphone, we have a special presentation from 2 of our neighbors who've become quite famous lately. Amber squeezed my hand as we walked toward the makeshift stage. The same picnic goers who'd witnessed our potato salad collision were now applauding for the couple who'd started a successful business together. Some of you know us as the women who brought identical salads to last year's picnic, I began, getting a laugh from the crowd. What you might not know is that meeting led to the most important partnership of our lives. Professional and personal, Amber added, taking the microphone. We've built a business based on communication, between disciplines, between species, between people who might not normally trust each other. I pulled out the small velvet box I'd been carrying for 2 weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. Which brings us to today's announcement. The crowd went completely silent. Even the children stopped running around to stare at us. Amber Moore, I said, dropping to one knee right there on the community center stage. You've made me braver, smarter, and happier than I ever thought possible. You've shown me what real partnership looks like. Her eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Will you marry me? Yes, she said before I could even open the ring box. Yes, absolutely yes. The applause was deafening. Max barked his approval from somewhere in the crowd. Rachel was crying into a napkin while Amber's parents hugged each other and took pictures with their phones. But all I could see was Amber's face as I slipped the ring onto her finger. A simple band with a small diamond, practical and beautiful like everything else about our relationship. How long have you been planning this? She asked as I stood up. Since Vancouver. Maybe since the mine rescue. Possibly since that first potato salad collision. I love you. I love you too. We kissed on stage while the entire Mill Creek community cheered, and I thought about how much had changed in 1 year. Emma was building a new life in Portland, sending occasional postcards that I read with fond attachment. The mine had been converted into a memorial park for the victims we'd helped uncover. Our business was thriving beyond our wildest dreams. Later, as the sun set over the mountains and the picnic wound down, Amber and I found ourselves at the same potluck table where we'd first met. "Different salads this time," she observed, looking at our contributions to the community feast. "Had to mix things up. Can't be known as the potato salad couple forever. What will we be known as instead?" I considered this, watching families pack up blankets and folding chairs, couples walking hand in hand toward the parking lot, children chasing fireflies in the gathering dusk. The women who found each other through underground mysteries and decided to build something beautiful above ground. That works. Max appeared at my side, tired from a day of being petted by dozens of strangers. Through our connection, I felt his contentment, his sense that all was right with his small world. "Ready to go home?" Amber asked. Home. Our apartment, with its mismatched furniture and geological maps on the walls. Our shared office space with its growing collection of awards and testimonials. Our life together, built on trust and communication, and the kind of love that gets stronger under pressure. "Ready," I said. We walked toward the parking lot, Amber's engagement ring catching the last rays of sunlight, Max trotting between us like he'd orchestrated the whole thing from the beginning. Behind us, the park settled into evening quiet, ready for next year's picnic and whatever surprises it might bring. But I wasn't thinking about next year or even next month. I was thinking about tomorrow morning, waking up next to the woman I'd chosen and who'd chosen me back, building our weird and wonderful life one day at a time. Sometimes the best love stories aren't about dramatic gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes they're about two people who meet over potato salad and decide to face whatever comes next together. Even if it involves talking to underground creatures and exposing corporate conspiracies. Especially then.